Okay, so in this video we are going to be focusing on color theory. So I again have my water with my paintbrushes, and I have my paint. I have some paper towels handy, and then my paint palette. So in this one we're going to be looking at how colors are changed whenever we add the opposite color to it. Just a little bit. So this first one starts with red, so I'm going to make sure I have plenty of red in here, and it's fairly concentrated. Now its complement is going to be green, so I'm going to be adding a little bit of green to it. So I'm going to not take it right out of here and go directly into my red. I'm going to mix up my green in a separate little well ahead of time. All right, so with this one we have to be very controlled as to how much paint we're adding. So the first thing I'm going to do is take and just paint my red here. So it shows me what my red looks like before I have altered it, okay? That's pretty simple. So the next step is to take a little bit of green. So I'm just dipping very slightly the tip of my paintbrush into my green, and I'm going to add it. Now, if I didn't get enough in, it probably won't change it, okay? So I'm going to try it a little bit more. Okay, now I see some change. So when I put this on there, notice how that has actually made it a little bit darker. So I didn't alter this paint at all except for adding a little bit of green to it. Now I'm going to add a little bit more green and see how that changes it. So this is kind of like a garnet. So, you know, like I wouldn't have predicted that that would happen if I added its complement to it. Like that is just kind of a complete surprise to me. So let's move down to the next one. So this one involved orange and blue. I do not have orange on my palette yet, so I'm going to mix up some orange. And I'm going to mix a little bit more blue just to make sure I have enough. All right, so my first one is just my pure orange. I'm going to add a little bit more paint to this just because it looks a little bit watered down. There we go. All right, so now my complement to orange is blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue and I'm going to add it to my orange. Oh, so this makes a very interesting color. It's a little bit brown. All right, let's see what happens. Oops, wrong color. Let's see what happens if I add a little bit more blue to that. So a little bit more brown. Again, I feel like this is a little bit more predictable. Like this red I never anticipated, but orange with blue kind of anticipated an orangey brown. All right, now let's look at yellow. All right, so if this ever happens to you, which happens a lot to me, I get a contamination going on with my color. And that doesn't mean that it's just done and over with. What I'm going to do is get it wet, and then I'm going to take a paper towel and kind of dab off the surface. And that should clean up your yellow a little bit. So don't think all is lost if you get a little bit of other color in your yellow by accident. All right, so I'm going to mix trying to get some of that yellow going here. All right. And I have purple over here, but notice I don't have very much. So let me bulk up my purple a little bit. All right, so with yellow is such a light color. I got to be really careful when I'm adding a dark color like purple to it. Like they look like very opposite. So this one I'm just doing a very slight amount. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do my pure yellow here. Whoopsies. We'll fix that. Pure yellow. All right, so just a slight amount of purple is going to be added to this yellow, and you're going to notice like a big difference. All right, so that's kind of a mustardy color. I'm going to add a little bit more purple. And that is, I am not sure what kind of color that is, okay? All right, so our next one, so we've done the lighter colors and added the darker colors to them. And so now we're going to flip and we're going to start with the darker colors and add the lighter colors to them and see the difference. All right, so I have green. Now this is not a pure red, so I need to get a pure red back on my palette. All right. So I'm going to add a little bit of red. Now it takes a lot more color to make a difference with the darker colors. I forgot to add my pure color first. So I'm going to take some red and add it to my green. Okay, so that kind of makes it less intense. And actually this is a really good like green for like grass, you know, that kind of thing. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit more red. Notice I rinse my brush a lot. Every time I'm like taking one color and adding it to another, I make sure I rinse that brush. All right, so it's a little bit more dull in that one, kind of graying it out that way. All right, I'm going to turn my paper. We have two more sections to do. So I have a blue. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to this, bulk it up a little bit. And then I need to get a pure orange back on my palette. All right, so I'm going to start with my pure blue. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of orange and I'm going to add it to my blue. So that definitely makes it look like a bluish gray, which is something I wouldn't anticipate. I'm going to add a little bit more orange to that blue. And that's kind of like a smoky bluish gray color. All right, we got one more. I have purple, but I don't have a pure yellow, so I need to make sure I get a pure yellow on my palette. All right. There's my pure purple. I'm going to rinse my brush and take some yellow and add it to my purple. Probably could have added a little more yellow. That dulled it out a little bit. It actually kind of made it look a little bit darker. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to my purple. So kind of grays out the purple a little bit, makes it a little bit less intense. All right. So there, even though you only have these colors, notice how just mixing two colors together gives you a lot of different options. So while this seems like not very many options, this seems like a whole lot, and that's just with mixing two colors together.